really thought about it this way until now, but I think the truth is that I thought I could do all of this on my own. I could start my own business, Lauren stay home with the kids. Like, you can do your thing, I'll do my thing. And I found out very quickly that was not the case.
Welcome back to The Untrapped Entrepreneur. This is not the voice of Ben Davis. This is producer Stephen Heiner. And today I've actually got Ben and Lauren Davis with us as guests. Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for having us, Stephen. Or me having you. I don't know. I'm confused.
It's one or the other, right?
That's right.
Well, obviously, it's more difficult to ask Ben to interview his wife. And because season 2 is all about marriage and business, we thought what better to ask about marriage and business than the wife of the guy who started this podcast, Lauren. And we've heard in different episodes from season 1 and season 2, part of the origin story of the Gents Place, but it's all from Ben's side, right? Ben didn't like haircuts. Ben didn't want grocery shopping. And then he had a reaction to that. But can you tell us a little bit about your side of the story? What were you thinking, feeling, talking to about Ben as he was going through this process? Because he had a stable job, right?
Yeah. Yes, actually a very stable job. So, so that was, kind of the topic of the conversation is just, can we do this? Should we do this? Was I pregnant?
I think you were
about to.
No,
be...
we had 2 kids.
Oh, we had that's
Benjamin
right.
and Pierce. Yeah.
The years smushed together. So yes, we had 2 kids, one with health issues, congenital heart defect, and we had just moved into a rather large home for us at the time. Kind of you get those promotions and then you get the promoted house, the bigger house and all the things. And he came to me and said, I want to start this business. I want to be free from the corporate lifestyle or answering to other people lifestyle. And, we really just thought about it. I'm a pretty go along to get along person and supportive person. And I just said, well, I guess we're 25 or I guess 24 at the time making the decision. We don't have a lot now. What does it matter if it all blows up? We're both college educated and we could move back in with our parents, I guess. I just didn't feel like there was a lot to lose. Other people looking in on the situation may have thought so, but I just was.
Yeah, I was going to say the way that you just reacted is a classic entrepreneurial reaction. But the other people around you, whether that's family or friends, might say, "Are you sure you want to do this, Lauren?" I think that the idea of the stable job is a hard narrative to break out of.
It is, and I suppose I struggle with that because, part of me I'm like a 50-50 person. Part of me desires the certainty, but then there's this other part of me that kind of enjoys the roller coaster and then certainly enjoys the freedom. So I had to agree to move out of this home I had just moved us into and decorate. We weren't even there a year. And then not only move out of a nice, pretty large home, I agreed to move into a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 toddlers.
Okay.
That's terrible.
And there was no bribery involved here. Ben didn't have to promise anything. You just said okay.
I guess a promise of a freer future and freedom. I suppose as we'll move through the conversation today, clearly is something I value.
Right. Well, and freedom comes with that responsibility, right? That you don't get to that without having gone through some sacrifices first. And obviously moving from a big home into a 2-bedroom apartment is definitely one of those challenges. Right. Well, 2 toddlers at a time. And you said one had heart issues. And I think this has to do with day 1 of the business opening. I always remember Ben talking about either the hot water wasn't working or he was trying to get on the phone to the hospital or something. So what was happening that day? Do you remember?
Yes. It was mid-December and Pierce, our middle son, was facing his 2nd open heart surgery. So at a year old. So his birthday is December 12th. And he had surgery on December 17th, originally his first one at 5 days old. And then after some balloon angioplasties midway through, we found ourselves in surgery again that next December. And that just happened to be right in line with the opening of the Gents Place. So yeah, Ben was working that front desk for 12 hours. And then I was, hold down the fort at the hospital.
Well, we did.
Were you just doing updates?
Yeah, just
throughout the day?
updates if my memory serves right. And then Pierce turned 1 in the hospital. And so I remember Ben's mother coming down and bringing Pierce a cupcake. I think we have a picture of it somewhere. And you know, it's just divide and conquer. I don't know. I guess when you're in survival mode, you don't really have a lot of time to like think or process. You just get it done.
We were in survival mode in every way because we had a toddler who is 15 months older than Pierce, so he's 2.5 years old. Then we had Pierce, who's a year old, getting heart surgery. So that alone is like survival mode as parents. You've got 2 little kids kind of running around, plus 1 in the hospital. And then I made the mistake of putting a big advertisement on the front windows because we needed cash. So like we're just blowing through money while we're building the location. So I put this advertisement out of 50% off gift cards. And you just go to the website and buy gift cards. So we had sold over $10,000 worth of gift cards, and people were forcing us to open. So it's like we have you better open by Friday, otherwise I want all my money back. And I'm like, well, that's my son's
I got this gift card I've got to spend.
my son's heart surgery is on Friday. We're gonna have to figure out how to make this work.
No. And as I said, the hot water, was that right? That wasn't working that
there was
day?
no hot water
There's no
that
hot
day.
water. Full disclaimer, I told these guys, I'll open, but there is no hot water. They're like, we don't care. We're coming in.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
We've talked about you all having 2 kids. I want to rewind a little bit. Where did you first meet? How did you meet? And how did you know you were going to get married?
Do you want my version of the story or hers?
We can have your version first, and then Lauren can hop in.
Well, it was clearly love at first sight, one way or the other. I'll let you guess which one. But we met when we were 16 years old, and we met at a friend's house down the street in the town that she lived in. So we lived in 2 different towns, but the high school kind of pulled in from like 25 miles. So she lived out in Canyon Lake. We met at a friend's house at Canyon Lake. And I don't know if it was love at first sight, but certainly there was like a kindling there. Like we both gravitated towards each other at that time. I think we both maybe had boyfriend, girlfriends at the time. And I don't know, over the coming weeks or months. I mean, I remember one particular night where we actually met and talked. And then it was kind of, I don't know, history from there. But 16 years old in high school, introduced by friends.
Yeah.
That was my version of the story, the shortened version.
Does that sound right?
Yes, that sounds about right.
And was it love at first sight?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Okay.
I really liked you. So, I mean,
Definitely like at first sight.
Okay.
I mean, you
I'll
have
give you
to
that.
remember that I was a 16-year-old bratty, teenager. So I think we had a mutual friend, and my friend Melissa, and we were like, what are we going to do tonight? We should have a party. And I was like, that Ben Davis, he's cute. We should invite him over. And she's like, yeah, I know his friend Michael. We'll get him over. And then,
Nice conspiracy.
yes, all
So-
high school girl conspiracies here.
So, as you're moving towards graduation, was the idea maybe you would go to college in the same town, or were you already talking about marriage?
That's a great story, Stephen.
Well, so our relationship is a series of getting each other back. So as I mentioned, I've become a much more grateful and great person as I've gotten older, and selfless. I would say I was pretty selfish at 16 years old, very kind, but selfish. So I thought I was going to have a huge career in fashion, and I wanted to get out of Canyon Lake in a small town and just kind of live the big city dream and do that. So I said I was going to go to fashion school, and we didn't really have money, and my parents didn't go to college. My dad was GED educated, he didn't even graduate high school. And so I was like, oh, I need to go to college. And so I got on the internet, kind of had just started. I think we had a computer in our home at the time. And so I looked up where the best fashion school was, like not even thinking. It was New York Fashion Institute of Technology, FIT, in Manhattan. And I said, oh, I'm going to go there. And so, and so I applied and I got in, and I never once talked to Ben about it. I was just like, why would I wait or do something different than what I would like to do? So that caused a few bumps, towards the end.
You just said, I'm going to go to FIT.
Yes, and I
And
never
then
even
he
been to New
said,
York. And my dad ended up dying that summer, which it was a very hard summer. And my mom just flew me up to New York City for the very first time in my life, dropped me off for college, and said, "Good luck."
and Ben, your reaction was?
Well, we broke up for a few months.
Yeah.
So how did that fashion school journey go?
Well, it lasted 3 semesters until reality set in. I mean, we didn't have money for college, so I'm on loans and got a full-time job and going to school full-time. Ben and I reconnected because we definitely, had more than just a high school relationship. We were very bonded. And he applied and got into NYU. And that first semester that he got into NYU, I think we were sitting at a Dunkin' Donuts, and I was like, oh, darn it, I want to go home. I want to go home to Texas.
The thing is, if anybody knows the Davises, the idea of Ben Davis at NYU or you in Manhattan is just hilarious.
Yeah, it was fun. It was an adventure I would never undo. I love it. I love this city. It's just so fun, but like you just really can't put a Texas, like a country Texas girl there. And because Ben was like, I'm going to do Wall Street. And I was like, I'm going to do fashion. And you're like, no, we're going back to Texas.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see an Instagram story at some point in the future of you guys either at that Dunkin' Donuts or a Dunkin' Donuts near that location and just say, what has passed since this time.
I'm pretty
But
sure
you
I
both-
remember exactly where it is because every time I go to Manhattan, I avoid that part of town. It's
Oh, that's great. All right, so you're homesick. We got to go back to Texas. So, do you say we're going to get married, or?
Well, no, we hadn't gotten married. It was when we were at UT.
Yeah, I went from
Austin.
UT to NYU back into UT, and I just had a year left of school. I was able to graduate early, miraculously. So I spent a year there. You were at UT, and then I got a job in Dallas. And at that point, I mean, we both knew we were going to get married, but it was we had no money, paying for college all on our own. And I was, the classic, like saving up enough money to buy a wedding ring. And I worked at T-Mobile at the time, my last semester of college. And they made this massive commission change, which they probably still regret. They probably think about it decades later. Selling prepaid phones at the time. That was like their big money maker because they could charge more per minute. And so they did this big promotion. And we cleaned up on sales, and I got a $10,000 commission check going from college
Oh, wow.
into my first job. And so I had money to buy a ring. So I finally bought one.
Yeah. Well, he bought me a stone because I wanted to design my own ring.
That's right.
I'm sorry, I can't help it.
Yes.
Just really wanted a vintage ring, and it's really hard to get. So
That's right.
Hey, that's where you found yourself. And then did you all then decide you were going to move to Dallas?
yes, and then I
And
finished
why?
Well, he got his first job, the job that he left, my
Okay.
say job. And then I finished school at University of North Texas in Denton. So, and I graduated in 4 years in a summer. So I don't know how I've taken a lot of hours, summer school, Maymesters, all the things to graduate on time. But yes, that's why we say we got each other back. You're a little this, a little that. I move you, you move me.
Oh, yeah. You thought you were going to finish at UT, didn't you? Well, how about UNT? How does that sound? How does Denton, Texas sound, Lauren?
Well, when I think about that, did you envision that you were going to still have, let's say, a part-time career, or were you going to be a stay-at-home mom? What was the vision at the time as you were finishing school?
Gosh, I had no idea. Oh, actually, as I was finishing school, I did have an idea. Is just graduate because we had gotten married. I had gone through RCIA to become Catholic, got married in the Catholic Church. We got pregnant with our son, Benjamin. And then I had him September after I graduated in August. So at some point, I just said, I got to get out of here with a degree. And if, bachelor's degree, we're already getting pretty common. So I said, to do anything relevant, I'll probably have to go back for my master's. I just got to get this first degree. So I decided, I went into my counselor's office and I said, how do I get out of here the fastest? I had everything from, business fashion business classes to thought I was going to be a teacher to whatever. And they said, sociology will get you out of here. And I said, I'll take it. So
I think I remember you saying like, I like people. I can do that.
I like people. Yeah. People are interesting. Yes. I'm going to do that. So I was just like, I got to get out of here. I have to graduate. Otherwise it's going to become very, very difficult. So,
although knowing how much you like Brene Brown, that sociology piece does make sense to me, at least from that point, right? But we wouldn't know about that till later.
Yeah.
So I want to bring us back forward in time again to business has started. We're past that first day, hot water not working, and I think, Ben, you told me, we were talking about this episode some weeks ago, and you told me about the first time you fired Lauren, I think.
Unfair
Could you give us a bit of
no HR department. I'm still going to file that complaint one day.
That's right. Yeah. Wait till we actually have an HR rep, and then you can you go ahead and file that. Hopefully there's a statute of limitations. Well, I haven't really thought about it this way until now, but I think the truth is that I thought I could do all of this on my own. I could start my own business, Lauren stay home with the kids, and she did help out significantly in designing the actual aesthetic of the Jen's Place. It was very instrumental on how we look and feel today. But after we got open, I'm like, I got this. Like, you can do your thing, I'll do my thing. And I found out very quickly that was not the case. Like, this was more than I could handle. And so I was constantly asking her, like, we're in our apartment. It was like, could you help me lick envelopes and put stamps on them and handwrite to members and to people to try to get...
He paid me like a quarter or $1 or something per hand.
I hope the EEA or whoever is listening to this episode.
I'll tell you what, it was not $1. That was way too much money.
I felt like I just have to fund my caramel macchiatos. I just got to fund a caramel macchiato.
I think it was a quarter at a
time.
I'm
pretty sure it was.
But I think that was it from the beginning. I realized that I needed her help and that she could add a ton of value in the business. And so she found herself, from designing the location to licking envelopes to running HR. At one point, doing all of the recruiting. And I don't remember what role you had at the time, but yeah,
I do.
You did? Okay. Well, there is a story.
That's coming.
A story that's 100% true, and I'm not proud of it. But I leave the house. She's working on the computer. I leave the house, and she calls me. And she's just, I would call it complaining. You might call it giving feedback. But I remember just hearing all this. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot work in the business with her. It's been long enough. And so I turn around without telling her I'm turning around. I'm still talking to her. Yep, got it. Okay. Knowing full and well what I was going to do. Like, she was going to get fired today.
And how long into the business is this?
This is probably we were on that.
We were in the Walnut Hill house, and this is somewhere between 2012 and 2014, probably 2012. So we're 3-4 years in, and
we have 3 kids.
You pull up to the house.
3 kids at this time.
3 kids and 3 locations, 3 Jen's Place locations. And so I'm listening. I go back in the house. I'm on the cell phone. She sees me, and I just walk over, and I just put my hand on top of her laptop and shut it. And I said, like, you're done. You're done. And I remember her going, what? Well, but I still need to get whatever she was working on. I still need to get this done and this, and who's going to do that? And I'm like, I'll figure it out. You're done. Like, it's over. Done. What were you working on? Do you remember?
Well, I was in charge of recruiting at the time. So it's probably an offer letter.
What's your side of the story?
Okay, so not too far off of what he said, but I had 3 kids at home. We had our daughter Caroline, so she's crawling around on the floor. I've got 2 toddler boys, so we probably have at this time, I don't know, 3 kids under the age 5 or 6, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And I'm working from home, and it's impossible to have a quiet home with 2 boys 15 months apart and then a little girl, crawling around on the floor. And so I'm, in my mind doing my best, which I'm getting to work when I can in between being a mom. And it was recruiting. This is where we really learned that don't date your boss. You can't be reporting into your boss. And I'm sure like I was late on, doing some things and I was just frustrated. And so I'm calling him like, I hate this job, and said something like, and I'm probably crying at this point, and I'm just like, I'm so frustrated, just really giving him an earful. And then I hear the car door shut, and then I hear the front door open, and then I'm like, what? And then he comes over, yes, and he does. He slams the computer down in front of me and told me I'm done. And I thought for a second, like you said, no, I have a few things. And I thought, expletive you, and that sounds great. It's summertime. I'm happy to have all my time back. Good luck. If we're done, we're done. So, it was,
Okay.
yes, definitely wasn't or like a marital, trophy time, but it was real and we learned a lot. So,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed my summer
How
off.
long? How long did that firing last?
3 months.
Not very long.
And then he
Okay,
rehired
so it was a layoff.
Yeah, it was an unwanted layoff and then a rehire against my will because I was really enjoying my extra time.
I mean, it is nice to have that, and we're laughing and joking about it now,
Yeah.
but perhaps more than I do that many marriages have been tested and to the limit, and then beyond the limits and to the breaking point. Did you ever have that concern about your own marriage, just within your own history? How you viewed marriage, and then what your and Ben's approach was, and then what the boundaries of the business were in relation to your marriage?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, not having those boundaries, having marital fights combined with work fights, combined with kids and all of those things. I mean, yeah, it tested our marriage. We've been at many breaking points where it got very tough. And by the grace of God, really, by the grace of God, we managed to keep it together. But yeah, like especially that particular story, that was a huge breaking point. But we learned, like, I just cannot report into. He can't report into me. I can't report into him. The work has to be parallel, independent, and collaborative. But there can't be deadlines because I've got to work at my own pace, and I can't be having him say, did you do work and did you get dinner on the table and did you get the kids to bed?
I'm thinking of like pillow talk, like, hey, did I get those TPS reports?
Exactly. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm
just one simple polite question, right, could be taken completely the other way. Like, hey, did you
because context is everything, right?
It is. So now if I need to ask her a question, I just go through someone else and like, can you ask Lauren this question? And it lands completely differently. I just gave away one of my secrets.
Sure.
Oh, wonderful. So when Liz calls me,
when Liz calls you, yeah.
Did you plan the company party yet? Well, no, I haven't.
But Liz, you say I'd be happy to get on a call and discuss that.
Happy, Liz. Happy for you. Happy to talk to you.
Hey, you found a method, you found a way that works, and that's what matters, right? How did you track that progression? Because you said there's different breaking points, and sometimes it's hard to then take those different breaking points and say, okay, but we're still moving forward together, and we're not going to let this beat us, and we're going to keep going. What do you think helped you have that vision and have that ability to keep going forward? Because plenty of other people around us in business and in life give up. Just say, you know what, that's it for this business and this marriage. I'm out.
I want to comment on this.
Okay, you go first.
I think we may have different answers, but I think that what has kept it together is the personal commitment to each other. So it's like, if the business thing isn't working out, but you know for sure you're going to be with this person the rest of your life, then you have to work the business part out. If it's like, well, I don't know if the business thing isn't working out and I don't know if I really like this person, then it's real easy to just like throw it all away. But when you're still going to be together forever, then for me, that gives you make a different set of decisions. You go, you know what? Let's just create different boundaries. We talk about it and go, we're going to be together. The business still has to run. Maybe we shouldn't report into each other. Maybe we need to divide and conquer. Maybe you should take a step out for a bit, or we can find a replacement. But I think for me, that's what's made it work for us, is like the personal commitment on the personal side.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's different things at different times. I think the growth in my faith and our faith with Ben's as in our marriage and in family has kept us through some exceptionally hard times. The grace of God before really being firm in my faith, I think held things together. At times when things seemed like in despair, having your marriage, family, and business all tying into one makes it logistically very difficult to separate it and sort of like keep some like tangible boundaries around like fine, it's over. Okay, who's gonna unwind it first? Oh no, never mind. That's way harder. Let's just work it out. It just sort of keeps you these like these boundaries around it where it's like, okay, it's just like, why would we go and quit and start anew when we could just find a way to make what we're doing work? Like the grass isn't greener. And it being so complicated and intertwined.
Yeah, the frame that you're using,
Yeah.
I think about that too big to fail, lie that they give us about businesses. And so you're framing it as too important to fail,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That there's too much going on here. It's like, well, surely I can figure this out. Surely there's something that we can do. And I think sometimes people lose that vision.
Some other context too, Stephen, is that we didn't have a playbook to follow from our parents. And so, and I love my parents, and I know Lauren loves her parents, but the reality is there's 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, there's like 12 divorces, if you're counting on both sides between our two parent sets. And so we knew, and this is really a gift, we knew what divorce looked like. We knew what alcoholism looks like. We knew what drugs looks like through all of our families and experiencing this. And so I think that's helpful too for us to go, if we go down this path, we already have been there before as kids and are still dealing with that to this day. And we were talking about this the other day. We have some of our friends going through divorces whose parents had stayed together. And so they didn't have the frame and the lens through which we look, as they don't know how difficult divorce is. For them, it's new. And for us, we've been there many times before, and we go, we're not going there.
Nightmare. I'm not going to live. I don't care how bad it gets. It's just a nightmare that I refuse to participate in.
Boy, I feel like we could do another episode just on that.
Don't get divorced.
I want to come back to the kids because they've been in and around our story. As someone who hasn't ever had children, I've often said that as a business owner, there's some analogy to your employees, that they have different temperaments, different personalities. You can't treat them all the same. They come from different backgrounds. What business lessons have you brought back into your home, and what parenting lessons have you brought to the workplace?
I got some. Well, and I know you agree with this, is our company values. Years ago, we set out with kind of a mission and vision and company values that we live out. And the people that have been with us for 10 plus years, ourselves included, will tell you that they brought the Gents Place values into their personal life and vice versa. So for me, I think establishing those company values and realizing like what it takes to make a functional work environment actually was helpful in our own family. A lot of people, I think it's maybe the opposite. Like they have a real strong, tight-knit family, no divorces, nuclear family, faith integrated in, and they take those personal values and bring that into their business. At least for us, we kind of came from a bunch of crazy places. Is like we got our foundation set from a value standpoint in our business, and then I feel like we kind of caught up on the personal side later on.
Yeah, it was the genesis. So we had to implement culture in our business for us to achieve the business results and the dream we wanted. And we're authentic people, so you can't live incongruently. At least in the mindset of if you want to have a happy life, like you can't be one person at work and one person at home. And then you certainly can't do that if you're the business owner and the one creating the culture? Like, how big of a hypocrisy would it be for us to not live out our company values when you have someone like Liz stands out? Like, she is, born and raised Jen's Place, and her daughter Callie is, Ms. Boss Lady Jen's Place, having direct compassionate communication with her teachers. So it's sort of this, beautiful give and take relationship, but it was, business first that got into our family. Personal growth, professional growth, just the idea of growing started in the business.
I think because we were so committed to each other and been together for so long, it was kind of like, we're okay over here, like personally, but our business, we haven't done this before. We opened in a crazy time in 2008 in the heights of the Great Recession. These were losing people. We had a walkout in one of our locations many years ago, early on. Like half the team walked out in one day. And like there was a need for us to create a foundation there. And so a lot of these company values now, like I said, are, Liz's kids, our kids live these out. And so that's been, I think that's been probably the biggest impact that we've made just holistically amongst our team members is they give us the feedback saying, everything you teach me here, I use in my personal life.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you think your children have been affected in terms of their attitude towards entrepreneurship? Do you think they necessarily want to open their own businesses, or do you think they've just gotten enough context to say, well, if I ever do want to start a business, I know where that comes from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think our middle son, Piers, has a natural disposition and personality for entrepreneurship. It's funny how you can birth these children, but they just are like a mixed bag. All three of our kids are totally different. And so Piers has the most likelihood of being an entrepreneur, I would say. Maybe Caroline too. I don't know. She's 13, so her personality is still coming. And Benjamin, our oldest, you never say never. He could be the most successful entrepreneur out of our whole family. You never really know. But his natural tendency doesn't seem inclined there. But I always think about that, thinking, what are they going to think the workplace is like, since they only know our reality? They don't know what it's like to be an employee.
Yeah.
They don't have any reference for that. They don't have stories of that. They have no framework. So I think it's been interesting.
They don't realize how much easier it is to just have a job. You just get to show up. No one calls you if the hot water breaks, or if payroll needs to clear tomorrow. That you don't, as an employee, you just get to show up. People hand you money and then you go home. Like that's it.
Yes, and our oldest did get his first job picking and packing school supplies this summer in a warehouse, which was an awesome first job. And he was a little shocked, I think, at the kind of just the workplace, because he hears us talk about it, I guess, and hears, maybe Ben take calls in the car talking to different team members. So they just have gotten, by osmosis. And he was kind of like, oh, Mom, these people don't want to work. And
like, why?
They
I
keep
don't know why
taking
this guy doesn't want to do his
vacations,
job.
and they're calling in sick. And he was up every morning. He was a 16-year-old boy up every morning of summer, there at 6:30 in the morning, and got home at 2 p.m. Monday through Friday. So
that's great.
Yeah, it was great. But he was definitely shocked at the lack of work ethic.
Yeah.
Well, and as you say, they've gone through a period where they've grown up seeing remote work become a much more normal thing, right? So that's the workplace, but they've also grown up in an environment in which schools were used as political theater, right? Where people had an agenda and they were driving things. And I realized as I was preparing for this, Lauren, you basically had your own startup experience as well, but in politics, right? And that's an entirely different program also. But if you could give our listeners maybe a 2-minute Reader's Digest version of your political journey. And once again, I'm going to ask, what lessons from business did you bring to that journey, and what lessons from that journey did you bring back to business?
Yeah, I think, going back to one of my beginning comments in this episode was my value of freedom. And, during the COVID era, that was tested. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I did not sacrifice our comforts and the whole story you just heard just to have some government officials come in and shut our business down and force medical mandates on my children, when being, a medically fragile child who I have spent a great portion of my life ensuring that I got him great medical care and kept him alive and did the best for him. So it was a very visceral, complete and total response, taking away my freedoms, that yes, did launch me into, running for a local office that had a lot of influence over these medical mandates. So it felt, I used literally everything we've learned in entrepreneurship and then some. So politics I get told it all the time, it's nothing like business. And I agree, like the structure of it is like business. It's a marketing campaign. So I thought when I get overwhelmed, I just try to boil things down to what I know and what's familiar, taking the unfamiliar, make it familiar. And I said, oh, okay, so I'm selling myself. I need messaging, I need a platform, and then I got to get it out as far and wide in a defined period of time as possible to collect as many votes as possible. So that's where I took like business in and then used it, and it worked. We, won.
And this time Ben was on the laptop, but you didn't fire him.
That's right.
Actually, no, I definitely didn't fire him because he's got a skill set that I don't have. But
I did threaten to walk off the job several times. So.
Yes. Yeah, it was fun to have kind of like those primary roles reversed. But again, we went right into being like super supportive of each other and playing to our strengths and operating in our strengths and all those things. But yeah, it's just that value of freedom was the primary source of the energy and the motivation, and standing up for our employees as well as my kids. They took the livelihood of our employees away, as well as the freedoms of my children, and took our marketing advice. And then also just being an inspirational leader and loving people from all walks of life. I mean, you get all kinds of people. I've had grown men yell in my face because they don't agree with me. I've had people spread rumors and call names. I mean, politics is the last like blood sport in the United States. The senator of Texas, Bob Hall, says that it's the last blood sport. And it's true. But I just really, thought about all of our employees. They come from all walks of life, all different belief sets. And I love them all. And they all have value. And so I just try to really use that lens to filter some of this hatefulness and ugly.
No, and I really appreciate that. And I suppose in a certain sense, it might be easier to deal with the strange man yelling at you. Because like, he doesn't know me. But, I remember reading these stories. These are close friends of yours who are like, yeah, that Lauren Davis, she likes to vacuum her house. And I'm thinking, first of all, who are these people, right? Like, that's the big crime. Lauren likes to vacuum. But secondly, I thought you were my friend. And I think that's one of the challenges that you do sometimes face that in business. I do think sometimes business can challenge some friendships, but I suppose politics maybe does this in a way that business doesn't do so directly. And how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I think anytime you're leveling up or going to the next level in life, whether it be spiritually, financially, or just in your personal professional growth, even if you're kind of outside the realm of religion, that you will risk losing friends and we learned this in Tony Robbins. Ben and I did a Tony Robbins conference way early on in our journey. And he did warn of that. You're going to go home and people aren't going to like you. Those weren't his exact words, but that was what he was getting at. And that's an experience. Once you kind of take a step up or a step out, there's always going to be someone who tries to bring you down. And I learned it's not you, it's what you represent in their life and what kind of your actions challenging their belief systems, because people get the craziest, angry, irrational when you either on purpose or by accident rock someone's core belief. So all of a sudden you create this instability in their life that they weren't expecting and cannot handle. And all you can do is handle yourself and try to be kind and compassionate when that happens. And certainly in politics, that's like an everyday occurrence. But in business too, as our business has grown, it's challenged people. So I didn't realize I was learning that there, and I got to test it and use it in politics. But when you take the company to the next level, there'll always be a bottom 10% that falls out. I remember when we started doing the weekly calls
Mhm.
on Wednesdays,
Yeah.
and it was mandatory, and you had to fill out a form. And one of the first forms that came in was FU or something like that, or WTF or something. And we were like,
This
well, she's fired. And but some people aren't ready. They can't handle it, and just is what it is. It is what it is. Plant a seed. We have people come back all the time and tell us that, gosh, I'm sorry for acting like that. You really made a difference in my life. So it's just politics, life.
Yeah, and you don't know what those people's backgrounds were, right? They could have had damaged childhoods or damaged previous work experiences where they were not trusted or they weren't given the proper tools to really appreciate what you were bringing.
I want to add
Ben,
one
I just
more
want to
thing.
ask, was it hard?
One more thing.
I was going to say, was it hard for you to watch Lauren get attacked in that way?
It-
And then, sorry,
No,
go
no,
ahead,
it was,
Matt.
and that's a great segue to what I was going to say too. Is like it wasn't because it was an attack not on her, but on our entire family. And what I was going to mention is this idea of competition. I didn't realize how much competition and someone fighting against you can unite a front, an entire family, and in this case, hundreds of thousands of voters. Like one story where you're getting challenged and people are fighting against you, it like immediately brought us together. Like we're gonna make this happen. And I'm not a student of history, but whatever the most famous battles were, 300 or whatever, where everyone was outnumbered, that's how we felt. It's like we're like
Mm.
5 people fighting this, David versus Goliath. You want to use a biblical example. And it was translating that to business. Like I appreciate competition more now than I did before this, because I realized how great it made us. If we didn't have people saying, you are going to lose, you're going to embarrass yourself, who do you think you are? All of these things that we heard, that wouldn't have caused us to stay up late and get the website going. And she worked so hard every night, every day, multiple events. People had never seen someone work so hard before. And I think part of it was certainly mission driven, but every time someone told you can't do it, or you're stupid, or you're going to embarrass yourself, it was like, oh man, thank you.
They shouldn't have said that. Thank you. Someone hasn't called me a complete idiot today. Yeah. I need that because I'm kind of tired. Resistance is everything. You could create it yourself, or people can create it for you. But resistance, it's necessary to all training and growth, physically, spiritually, business. All of it.
Yeah, welcome it. It's a gift. Competitor comes in town. Someone says they're going to crush you. Like that's a gift.
When you've alluded to the spiritual journey, Lauren, and one of the questions I asked to get ready to talk to you all was, if you could go back in time and talk to Ben and Lauren at the beginning of this journey, what 1 or 2 things would you say to help them do better? And I think one of them you mentioned was to have more of a focus on Christ and having that be a guiding principle. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, and we'll use that to wrap up today's episode?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. If I could go back and talk to my 10-year, 15-year younger self, I would say, do not lose your belief in Jesus, because I didn't have it. My family was an atheist family. My mom says agnostic. I say atheist. Tomato, tomato on that. Without God, for sure. And then I realized, through a series of people planting seeds in my life, like my softball coaches, my best friend's parents, the Doves, they showed me Christ. And then I went through RCA and I became Catholic, and we tried on churches, and I said, I feel the real presence of Jesus in the Catholic Church, not even fully understanding what that meant. It was just a feeling. And I even taught First Communion classes. And then somewhere along the way, I believe it was the venture into self-help, things that I went on a new age slumber, we'll call it. And I stopped focusing on Jesus, and I started doing all the things, which I suppose they're not bad, but if they are primary, in my opinion and in my growth, you're going to be not fulfilled. There's going to be a point where it's an insatiable pit for that. That's when I was like listening to Brene Brown, which she's got nuggets, but they cannot be your foundation. It is endless. And I just kept searching for happiness and fulfillment. And if I work harder, I study more, I watch another Brene Brown video, I go to another Tony Robbins conference, it never was enough. And then the political journey brought me back to, and I met some really strong Catholic women, invited me to a rosary group, told me get back to Mass, get to confession. And that set me back on this spiritual path that I realized that everything that I participated in self-help and new age type manifestation and all of that was a plagiarism of the Bible and the fullness of the Catholic faith. And it was all there. Everything that I had been searching for, I realized it was all there. And then the deeper I've gotten into going to daily Mass and really engaging in the material and reading the Word of God and just investing that much time there that I did other places, it is the most fulfilling material I've ever read in my life. It has all the answers. And I would just told my younger self, like just don't lose focus. All the answers are here. There's a parable, right? A story for everything that could possibly happen in life. Everything is right here. And so I've just never felt more happier, more fulfilled, more anything. And it's not like we have more of anything in life.
Mhm.
And I mean, sure, I love nice things, or it's nice to have a nice home and all that, but it's just, I tell you, just a different, it's a different light. It's a different level of fulfillment. It takes all the fear of failure away. Like our business is 15 years. It could still fail because anything can
Sure.
fail, right? That's not out of this reality, but there's just no fear in the failure anymore. Going through that political journey when half the world hates you for lies and for untruths, or just because you believe in Christ, all of a sudden, I didn't really matter. Because I got to a point where I had nothing but Christ. And that's when I was like, oh, I get it. Oh, but it's something you can plant seeds for people. I don't think anyone could have lectured me into this. It's just something you have to experience. And it's usually in the absence of literally everything: your social network, your personal comforts, your, losing of your freedoms, that you find true freedom in Christ. And it is life-changing.
Well, and Lauren, I want to make sure you don't beat up on yourself too bad about the personal development journey, the self-help thing, because I think all business owners, when we find out that there are books, are like, oh, I can do this and I can do this. And as you say, scripture does have everything, but it doesn't necessarily have it built down into, here's what you can do on a Tuesday, etc. Right? And I always say that the best that personal development can do, when it's at its very best, all it can give you is how. But it can never answer why.
Yeah.
Right? Personal development can never answer why. And without why, there's no point in anything. Right? And so utilize those hows when you can, but then leave it and then focus on the bigger.
Yeah, it just shouldn't be the foundation. And it became the foundation just out of a desire to succeed in business. And it was just out of balance. It's all about balance too.
Well, I want to tell a quick story that happened to me over this past week. 5 Catholic boys get in a van and drive to Louisiana to see a healing nun, Sister Dolce, in Louisiana, to hopefully cure my friend's cancer. He got diagnosed with terminal cancer. And we have, 7 hours each way in this van to talk to my friend that has been diagnosed. And he asked, probably the gentleman in the car, who is probably the most devout, studied Catholic, in the car, and he said, hey, like, am I on the right path? Because he had just finished reading all of these things that he has done to try to cure his cancer. And it took him about 5 minutes straight of reading from iPhone notes. I've done this. I mean, it was literally, he could write a book on it. And the response from this, and he said, am I on the right track? I just don't know if I'm doing the right thing. And he said, well, you've got to ask yourself one question. Where are you starting in your healing journey? Are you starting with all of these medicines and everything else, or are you starting with God? And that really hit me, is that, Rick, you can do all of these other things, right? God put all of these opportunities on the earth to try to heal and feel better and everything. But tell me, and he said, Rick, tell me about how you're starting. Tell me about your relationship with God right now. And it was a fascinating conversation. And I told this gentleman, I said, wow, I've been contemplating this, trying to figure out how I could give feedback to Rick and what he could, how I could help him. And I said, Darren, that's it. Like that was the most beautiful advice. And it changed his frame, and said, well, I've been going to mass, every week. I've been doing this and that. So I think the biggest change for us is like, what is your identity? There's all you see, Stephen, you see all this online, I'm the successful businessman, I'm this, and creating these identity statements. And if you're not starting with, I'm a child of God, then in my opinion, and in Lauren's opinion, you're probably going to veer off track at some point. And so that's like, for me, and is reinforced this week, is like, where am I starting? And is my faith my starting point? And then, yes, I can go read this business book and go to this motivational talk and talk to coaches and everything. But if my starting point isn't right, I'm probably going to veer off into a direction I don't want to go.
I think that's a great place for us to end. If we talk about ending points, our last thing I'm going to mention today is the newest venture in the Davis household, which is the Gen Store, which is our season 2 sponsor. Mm-hmm. And Ben, if you could just give a quick plug for how the Gen Store populated in your mind.
Yeah.
And then we'll wrap up the
I hate
episode.
to mention other brands, but if you love Amazon, if you've heard of Amazon.com, you're going to really love the Gen Store. It's like 10 times better because it has like, 1/1,000,000th less selection, but it's all the right stuff. We've removed all of the toilet paper and, all the other things. So yeah, the Gen Store we've got over 3,000 products on there. It's an amazing curation of goods that any gentleman would appreciate. So we're selling premium coffee to $1,000 leather bags. We're going to have motorcycles on the store, maybe by the time this airs. We've got a lot of cool things on there, and 20% of your purchases on most products convert into an annual membership credit. So if you're a member at the Gen's Place, it only makes sense if you're going to buy something besides toilet paper, go to the Gen Store first, find something good there, check out, and then you'll get your 20% credit, and you'll be able to take that in and apply that to your annual membership.
But then even if someone's not near a Gen Store club, they're still able to contribute to some of the greater good that you're doing via the Gen Store, right?
Every purchase feeds a homeless veteran on the genstore.com. And then at some point in the future, we will be able, for those gentlemen that are not in the Gen's Place market, to earn some extra credit or make an additional contribution to a charity that they care about.
And just to tie this back to Lauren's journey, I think what Ben was mentioning, that major company that no one's ever heard of before, that one of the ways the Gen Store can help as part of a broader marketplace is making sure that we're putting our money in the right places.
Yes.
Right. We've come to see what people who think that they know more than we do and who are going to tell us what to think and what to do, they're going to do what they want with our money. And then we're free to say, yeah, that's fine. I guess we're just going to have to create our own beer, or we're going to have to create our own coffee, or we're going to have to create our own XYZ. And then you won't have our money and you can go do whatever you want with that other people's money. But if it means that we pay slightly more or we have to do different things, we're going to do that. But, as you say, the COVID era was a breaking of many illusions for many of us. And I think that's why the Gen Store, among many, let's say, other potential competitors, is a great opportunity for people to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and that, I'm glad you mentioned that. And those meals that we support our homeless veterans with is through our nonprofit that does not have a single salary dollar, a single dollar of overhead in that charity. So literally everything that gets donated through there gets passed immediately to our veterans in need or the homeless that we serve on a monthly basis. So it's a great cause to support.
Oh, and maybe we'll be able to talk about that in a different episode. But for now, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat about this and sharing your story. And I know that people will have learned something from it. I certainly have. And we'll keep going with season 2.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks, Stephen.